like the word stupid is not the strong enough word to describe these three. Well, they were pixies in this movie, but it was just one of those things where it's like, what? Why? Why are they like bumbling buffoons? Why are they being this way? It just didn't really make too much sense to me. I guess it could make sense because then it gives Maleficent motivation to want Aurora to be alive, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, why even have them there if they're not going to, if they're just going to be, doing absolutely nothing except, being really, really dumb. I don't know. I just, my brain hurts just thinking about it because I remember those scenes and I'm just like, why? I just don't know. Is this comedy relief or something? Because I do not understand.
I mean, that's exactly what I think it was. They're supposed to be funny. And, I mean, some of it was kind of humorous, but it's also showing that I don't think that it was the smartest choice to, like, throw a baby in the hands of a bunch of fairies. You said they were called pixies in this movie?
Well, I'm looking at the Wikipedia one where it says fairies for Sleeping Beauty, but they called them pixies in Maleficent, so.
Okay. So maybe they were called pixies. But that would explain, because Maleficent called herself a fairy, so.
Right.
Maybe so they weren't, like, the same race or whatnot. But yeah, I think it was trying to show that it's like, oh, are you really, like, are they really qualified to take care of a child? Like, no. Like, they don't just know what to do with a human baby, because their race does not need all that. They don't need to feed and water their children, probably. They live for hundreds and hundreds of years. So it's like, oh, whatever, we're magic. We just do what we want. And I think it was really meant to be comic relief. So I wouldn't think about them too harshly. They weren't really the main characters in this. But yeah, it definitely gave then an avenue to see that Maleficent was behind the scenes taking care of this child this whole time. In the Maleficent version.
Right.
Because obviously in Sleeping Beauty it did not happen that way.
Yeah, I mean, they could be really silly, but at least there's some, at least it's, like you said, with the Maleficent version, there's some humor to it, and there's some humor to the Sleeping Beauty ones. Like, I remember them trying to make the dress, and it basically looked like just this giant little, like, almost like a nice Christmas tree coat or something like that. It just looked horrendous, and it was just funny, though. It was one of those things where it's like, wow, at least they're trying, but at the same time, probably not the best thing to do. And of course, Meriwether just says, we're trying to make this the best day for her, and yet this is what we're coming up with. I'm done. I'm going to get the wands. And it's just like, what? Fair enough. At least they're practical. At least she's giving some kind of reason behind it. And of course, the argument between I think it was Flora and Meriwether, where the argument of either the dress should be either pink or blue. I thought that was just the funny. Even at the end when they did that, it was just funny.
Yeah.
And of course, so many people are just going to be like, no, blue's for a boy. It's like, just let it go. Just let it go. It's funny because they want their colors to be the final moment of the movie, I guess. But it's funny. But I'm trying to think here. Another interesting deal that they had. You mentioned it. I gotta pull up his name so that way I don't, tick off any. But I think the name is Diaval, the crow apprentice to Maleficent. Well, he was definitely a lot more of a character than I was expecting. And even at the end where they changed him into the dragon instead of Maleficent changing to the dragon, I was like, okay, that's new. At least we get the dragon thing, but I was not expecting that to happen at all. I mean, he still looked pretty badass.
Yeah.
Instead of in the movie where he just ends up, where the crow ends up just being turned to stone. And, of course, Maleficent doesn't even do anything. She just looks at the crow and just, like, sheer shock of, like, oh, no, what did they do to you? And then she just casually, goes on her way to cast that curse on the forest? Make it into, like, a forest of thorns or something like that. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but... instead of maybe just being like, oh, maybe I can just cast a spell, boom, oh, you're back. Nope, she's shocked, goes up, continues on her merry way. So I guess I can at least appreciate the fact she tried, creating some kind of, relationship with her sidekick. So I guess I can give that more of a plus than anything. So
yeah, I liked the fact that he was such a big aspect, and he was really, pushing her to be like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be such assholes. Because, he really tried to help out when Maleficent wanted to, but just didn't have the strength to let go of what she lost. Because she really lost, the most with her wings, and that was a big deal for her to try to get over, but she realizes in the end that it's not the child that did that to her. It was the king, so.
Yeah, definitely. As far as comparing the Prince Philip and Aurora Rose, both characters basically about the same, kind of innocent, kind of I'm trying to think of the right word. I'm trying not to make it sound insulting. Well, I guess with Aurora Rose, she definitely shows a little more simple-minded, but also innocence in her, in a way, in there, because obviously, she didn't know who Maleficent was. She honestly thought, she was her fairy godmother or something like that. And honestly, I looked at him like, really? There's a woman who is basically dressed in black with horns, and you're going to say it's fairy godmother. And she's just going to be like, oh, yeah. It's like, okay, it's your funeral. Bye-bye. I would just be like, yep, nope, I'm done. I'm out. And then, of course, she finds out who she actually is, and which also does, oh, boy, this was kind of one of those things where I just didn't like it, as a person. I didn't like it because it was part of the movie, but when she comes running back to her father, and her father just, basically shows his, as you might have said, prickish side, where he just shows that he doesn't exactly care. He just wants to kill Maleficent more than care about his own daughter. It's like, really, dude? You haven't seen her for 16 years, and this is how you're gonna basically, welcome her back into your life. It's like, oh, hey, welcome back. You're gonna be locked in your room basically until we kill Maleficent. It's like, wow, great, Father of the Year award right there. Just great job. I just literally had to shake my head like, wow, this goes far beyond leaps and bounds of Father of the Year. This goes like Father of the Century. Are you kidding me? Really, dude? And then I think there just came a point, this is one of those points where everybody was just like, yeah, this guy just deserves to die. It's like, yeah, basically, just go there. It's like, oh, thank God, he's gone. He's gone, thank God. I mean, oh, poor king. The king is
right, oh.
oh, the king is dead. Long live the king. I mean, for me, it's just kind of one of those things where it's just like, you feel partially sorry, but then the rest of you is just like, thank God. And I'm trying not to offend anybody, so please, by all means, don't take anything when I say literally. So, I'm trying to think if there's any other major differences or anything that was, I don't know. Definitely the ending did open up the possibility, of course, to a sequel, which is definitely in the works. So for those of you that are looking forward to Maleficent 2, it's in the works right now, so we're going to get to see Angelina Jolie play Maleficent again, so that's going to be interesting. I will probably go see it. So after the first movie, I was kind of like, but I'm thinking, I'll give it a fair chance. I've already seen the first one. I might as well go see the second one. I mean, I saw the first Hotel Transylvania, and then I saw the second one, and it's like, oh, well, I can now say that I've seen it, so wasn't impressed, but, I've seen it. Trying to think here. Any other major differences with the two movies that I'm missing?
I mean, I don't really think so. The main difference is, who we follow during the movie, and that's the protagonist for one is the villain, and the protagonist for the other is, I guess, the princess. But that's kind of the vagueness that Sleeping Beauty is, and why, in general, it's not one of my favorite fairy tales, is that I really don't know who you follow in Sleeping Beauty, because the protagonist sleeps through half of it. So it's like, are we following the prince? Are we following this? there's just multiple levels, and usually you need a narration and a narrator in order to progress you along the lines of Sleeping Beauty. That's one of the reasons why I did appreciate them taking a different look at it and going from a different perspective. And they also created a beautiful character within Maleficent, and she was one of the first looks that I did that I really committed to because of that beautifulness and the wings that went around it. It was just a gorgeous take on a villain that in the past has looked a little gruesome, even green, like why was she green? We don't know. That was the color of evil. Like, obviously she's evil if she's green. But yeah, I'm excited to see them do this again, with one, of course, the sequel, and two, with Cruella de Vil that has been announced. I am another person who I'm not the biggest fan of 101 Dalmatians. I'm just not. It wasn't a good enough story for me to stay connected. I liked the little puppies. It was cute, but when you watch it again, like when you're an adult, you're kind of like, there's nothing really there for me. So I'm thinking with following Cruella de Vil, it's going to give you that more adult-like essence and more of the story to where you'll care more about every character. And, that's what you want. You want people to care about the characters that have been thought up and you put so much time into. So I'm excited to see Disney continue to do this because I think overall it was a success. Even though they didn't have the music in Maleficent. They might do it for Maleficent too, though. Who knows?
Who knows, indeed. So are we basically on agreement that Aurora Rose is probably one of the worst princesses of all time? And I'll give my case as to why. The thing about it is that I really had to think about it, and I remember watching this as a kid, and it was just like, okay, this is nice. But looking at it as an adult, as you did put it, with especially with the 101 Dalmatians, you look at it and you're thinking, as you mentioned, the protagonist, she's asleep like 3/4 of the movie, so what's really the point of her having her there? It's kind of like she's fulfilling the stereotype of what everybody thought a princess should be. And I'm not blaming Disney for that, I'm just saying I think that's just how the route that they did. And even with the live-action remake, it was kind of the same deal. She didn't exactly stand out to me again as one of those, great princesses. I mean, you could definitely throw in like the, animations or even a lot of the other movies. Tangled, I mean, Rapunzel, she actually did some fight scenes. She actually did something more. Aladdin, Jasmine did the same thing. Little Mermaid, Ariel was a little more physical. Belle, I think that she actually tried being a little more, I think she used her words more than her fist, which is great. I think that works out a lot better. But with just Aurora Rose, she just didn't really stand out to me as one of those princesses that really just made it think like, oh man, everybody's going to want to dress up like her. Or, oh man, everybody's going to want to be like her. It's just like, yeah, not really. No, I think there's other people that could definitely fit the bill more than Aurora Rose did. I don't know. Am I being too harsh or am I onto something?
I kind of think you're onto something there. I do think that it would be why they remade it with the villain being such a powerhouse and being so cool looking and someone that, I think a lot of people really like the character of Maleficent now much better. She was a powerful, vengeful person, but she lost somebody, that she loved and trusted, really scorned her, really did something awful, took away something that she cared about, took away something that she was proud of. So I think that Aurora has never been one of my favorite princesses, but could have been because it was an older Disney princess movie. It could have been because she's not that interesting. She's, like you said, she's the typical, stereotypical, not just typical, stereotypical, storyline of a princess.